Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with Philadelphia-bred trombonist and founder and creator of City Jazz Festival, Ernest Stuart. Now entering its 9th year, this year's festival takes place in Philadelphia on Saturday, April 22nd from 1 to 7:30 p.m. It returns triumphantly after a 3-year hiatus, and it was sold out for the 5 years that it was going strong. Ernest was born and raised in Philadelphia, then moved to New York for his profession. Growing up under often difficult circumstances, he knew the important role jazz played in shaping his own life. Despite his success, he never forgot his roots. Quite the contrary. He kept tabs on the music scene in his hometown. We get into all of this and so much more. Enjoy the interview.
Well, hey, again, thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate your time today.
Oh, yeah. No, seriously, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So before we get into, kind of the kickoff of the Center City Jazz Festival again after the hiatus and your life and music, in a generic way, now we're all looking at March on the calendar, and we have PTSD, I'm sure, from 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how you survived that time period personally and as a musician, and how it's changed the way that you approach life now.
The number one thing that I'm grateful for, I guess, is sort of counterintuitive, is my son. At the time, I guess he was 3. And, kids are so dynamic that they make things more exciting than they are.
Yeah.
Everything's changing with them. They're growing. They're learning new things constantly. And I think having something to focus my attention on, like that, like raising a son, was really helpful. And great, of course, to spend a lot of time with him, because up until then I had been touring quite a bit. And I really needed some time off. I didn't realize I was going to get that much time off, but it was definitely important to get time off and spend time with him. Artistically, I really did a deep dive into photography. Right before everything shut down, I went out and bought a bunch of studio photography equipment, lights and stands and, like all sorts of things. And I knew I was going to have a lot of time on my hands, so I bought a lot of equipment. And I decided to go back to school for nonprofit management. It was a really interesting time.
Sounds like it, yeah. And, obviously now one of the big things that is happening is, the world's waking up. People are embracing live music again. You're getting ready to kick off a festival that's been on a 3-year hiatus. Talk about how that feels on a visceral level.
It's, they say, it's like riding a bike, because you could just go back on to the bike and pedal and you understand it and you'll just go. But at first, I don't care how long, if you've been off of the bike for 3 years or 10 years, it's going to be a little wobbly at first. and I think that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling a little wobbly with it. It's forgetting how to do certain tasks that I wouldn't have thought twice about in the past. But again, things are coming around, and is almost like a fish to water, where it's I'm remembering, oh, that's right, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that, I should do this now or do it sooner than later, and everything's coming together. And this time around, unlike the previous times, I enlisted the help of producing partners, organizational partners. WRTI in Philadelphia, the big jazz and classical station, is presenting the festival, and and I also have Pico and Jazz Philadelphia and Turtle Studios helping out. So it's a big community list.
So talk to me a little bit about your chops as a musician and how all this began, kind of where you were born and raised and what the early seeds that were planted in you, whether it was influences or home life that made you the musician you are and organizing this.
You know, I began playing music when I was 12. I wanted to play the trombone, I wanted to play the saxophone like any rational human being. That's why there are way too many sax players at the jam session, because everyone had the right idea. Then I somehow I couldn't get my hands on a saxophone. You know, my mother was a single mother and just didn't have the money to rent the instrument. You know, I didn't even tell her I was signing up for the music class. I've been wanting to do it for years at that point, and you know, I just said I'm going to do it. I don't care. And after a few weeks in class, my music teacher, you know, said, "Hey, everyone's learning their instruments. Where's your sax?" And I confessed that I signed up for the class without talking to my mother, and I wasn't going to get a sax. And she said, "Okay, well, yeah, how about you play one of the instruments we have in the back?" And you know, I asked her, you know, what's back there, and she said, "Well, we have a tuba." And I was like, "There's no way I'm playing tuba." And she says, "Well, okay, well, we have a baritone horn, you know." And I was like, "What's that?" And she's like, "It's like a small tuba." And I'm like, "There's no way I'm playing it, you know, no thank you." And she says, "Well, we have a trombone." And I said, no thank you. And she's like, "All right, well, look, you got to drop the class then. There's nothing I can do for you." And I said, fine, just give me the trombone. I'll figure it out. And since that day, since I got that horn in my hand, you know, it's been a really crazy adventure. And the trombone has taken me around the world and, you know, on many tours and, you know, things of that nature. I've been really fortunate, thanks to, you know, music. And, you know, I began going you know, I graduated from high school. I began going to Temple University, and I really began going out with my horn and playing with people around town. It was fairly simple back then to find people to play with around town because there's just a lot more activity. And I really, you know, that period of time really grew my love for the city and the music scene in Philadelphia. And eventually things kind of went south pretty quickly with, you know, there was the financial crisis and clubs were closing and things of that nature. So I decided to stop complaining about it and to try to find a solution for jazz musicians who were incredible musicians making incredible music and writing incredible original music, but they weren't getting enough love and there weren't enough opportunities for them to play. And, you know, the opportunity came, or the idea came for me to create a jazz festival to sort of help. You know, it wasn't the solution to the problem as much as, hey, here's one thing that can, you know, go towards making the scene a little more well-rounded. And, you know, I created the Kickstarter campaign for it in 2011, and 2012 we had our first festival.
So speaking of live music, what was the first live show that you ever saw that blew you away?
The first live show that blew me away. You know, it's funny. I grew up in black church, of course, my idea of music was very it was shaped and impacted by those experiences. I understood from an early age that music wasn't just something to listen to. It served a purpose. It within communities, within the church, community. It was a tool to get us from, spiritually from point A to point B. And I think those were really impactful, musical moments, that I got to experience weekly. Beyond that, professionally, I would go down to hear, a great saxophonist named Bootsy Barnes on like every Wednesday he played at Ortlieb's, which was a little dingy jazz club we had in Philadelphia. That was the clubhouse for all jazz musicians of Philly. And, going there weekly was just like mind-boggling how soulful Bootsy was. And it really instilled that sort of sense of character that Philadelphia music should embody this really important, soulfulness. I mean, those moments are small, and they aren't the big, I saw McCoy Tyner at the Kimmel Center, or I saw it's these small, normal, everyday moments that I got to experience that explained a lot about music to me.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what is it that you like the best about being a musician, organizing this event, being a part of the music community? What is it that you love the best about it?
I think it's remembering that I belong to a community. Oftentimes in the past, when I was putting the festival together, I would always be on tour, and I would be writing emails and putting out fires from a van, on the West Coast somewhere, or a tour bus in Europe or something. And I coming back home after that and being able to be completely surrounded by members of my community and hearing their work and their art was always very, very, very important to me. And I think it's going to be extra special this year, considering that we've had such a hiatus and we lost many members of our community due to COVID. And, it's going to be really important to be there in that space this year.
Talk to me a little bit about the music scene up there. It obviously is going to foster and lift up that local community. What's the Philly scene like? What's going on up there?
I got to tell you, the younger musicians around Philadelphia are extremely resilient. Not only are they extremely talented, but, as I mentioned earlier, when I was in college, I could walk around town with my horn, not knowing who's playing anywhere, just go to the normal spots, and I could always sit in with someone, and, I would just bounce from place to place. And any given night, I could have played in 3 different locations. And I think that's missing these days. But these younger musicians, just are banding together to make their own scene and to find their own opportunity, like not to find, but to make and forge their own opportunities. And I think that's incredible. But yeah, I mean, there are some really incredible musicians, younger musicians in Philly. Obviously, the older musicians are also incredible, and they are, still inspiring us. But I'm really impressed by the younger cats.
So at the end of the day, everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah. I don't know. it's funny having photography now. Photography has grown in importance in my life, and I think a big challenge is with photography, and really in all art, is finding ways to be intentional about your work and not just copying things that you saw someone else do, but figuring out, okay, what is my perspective on this? And that's sort of the big hurdle I think we find ourselves as artists and as human beings. Are we just recycling things that we saw, or are we really digging into finding that thing that we do well, and our identity can be sort of wrapped around this thing that makes us unique in this perspective that we all have individually. I know this is sort of a really roundabout way of answering your question, but I'm still on that search, for who I am. I don't know that I have a definite, concrete answer. I know that there are lots of things that I appreciate. I appreciate competency, and I appreciate uniqueness and a unique vision, and I appreciate people who work hard to figure out what that thing is, which is why I feel like I'm on this journey of understanding that about myself.
So the most important thing for us...
That was a long non-answer. I'm sorry, man.
No. You were good. I was just chewing it up because it's all about the creative process. So before we get into the particulars of the festival and I want to know kind of, if we were to get off the phone, you could get into a jazz DeLorean and go anywhere in the history of jazz and see a musician anywhere. Where are you going to go? Who are you going to see?
Oh, man. Wow. That's a heavy one. I think I'm going to find Ella Fitzgerald. I'm going to find Ella, and I might propose marriage to her. I think Ray Brown would fight me, but I would still do it. Ella is my favorite. But I know that if you get Ella, you can also go and see Dizzy and Miles and Charlie Parker, and you got everyone. So maybe I'm thinking, like 1945 New York, and hope for the best.
That would be a good idea, man. So Ernest, if anyone out there wants to get involved with the festival, tickets, your work, anything revolving around either of them, where's the best place to go and the details?
I would say head to ccjazzfest.com. That's our website, and we have all of the information being updated regularly, and the schedules being added, and the venues, and we're also adding satellite shows that are happening outside of the corridor that we're typically functioning within, just to be more inclusive of the other jazz clubs and jazz venues around town that doesn't lie within our corridor. There's some really great music happening in the city at the same time the festival is happening. So we want to, really give people a lot of options.
Perfect. Ernest, man, it's great to meet you. Best of luck with the festival.
Great to meet
and
you
everything
too.
else.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Philadelphia, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Ernest for his time, energy, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, you can find Neon Jazz interviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.